Hello, I'm Liz Zorab and this is Byther Farm, and today I want to talk about gardening and mental health. Recently I was asked a question by one of my supporters on Patreon, and here's the question. I'm just going to read it out from my phone. How do you get the momentum to garden and homestead with depression? I've been struggling and I hope you can provide some inspiration. And I thought that was a really good subject. Now I know I've talked about mental health and I talk about gardening regularly, and I've talked about how do I find the inspiration to keep going. But that finding the momentum question I think is worth talking about. And so today will be another one of my highly unscientific chats. When I talked about this with Mr. J, the ideas went backwards and forwards across the table for quite some time. And I want to assure you that this is purely my experience and it may not work for you. It works for me. None of these things I'm going to talk about necessarily work in isolation for me, but the combination of the different elements definitely have an impact. I have a really strong sense of duty, a sense of things that I need to do, and also guilt. So I am driven by guilt quite a lot, which obviously is not a brilliant thing, but in some circumstances it's really useful. And in this case, that sense of duty is twofold. Working on the homestead and doing the garden and producing food is my job. It is effectively my 9 to 5 job. And my driving force, not just daily, but right through the year, is to ensure that there is adequate and good quality food on our table. So that sense of duty also drives me to get up in the morning, because the birds need to be let out of their overnight housing. And so even on my worst day, unless I'm physically ill, and I've broken my foot or I've got such bad flu or something, then Mr. J will let them out. But other than that, it is my job to let those birds out in the morning, ensure that they've got water and food and that they are going to be safe and well for the day. And that makes me get out of bed, that makes me get outside, and being outside with a blast of fresh air, and sometimes it's more fresh than I want it to be. But that then gets the blood flowing and it gets me moving, and that starts my day. And then once I'm up and about, I want to be doing things, I want to be moving, so I actually have a physical want to keep going. On really bad days, when I'm feeling very low, sometimes just the most that I can do is get out there, give them some food and water, open their houses and come back inside. If that's what I can do as a bare minimum, that's good enough on a bad day. On a good day, I'll get lots achieved. Every day, Mr. J and I take a few minutes, usually at a mealtime, to talk through our achievements of the day, of what we've got done, of what we're planning, of what we'd like to be doing. And sometimes I literally say, come and have a look, and we'll go outside and have a look. Or he'll say, come and listen, and I'll go and listen to something that he's done. And that acknowledgement of what we've managed to achieve, however small that is really important. If there's something about recognising it, acknowledging it and celebrating it, and giving yourself a bit of a pat on the back for having done whatever it is you've done today. And on those bad days, if it is just, I did manage to get out and feed the birds, then that in itself is something to be celebrated. So although we're not popping champagne corks, we do acknowledge it, and the sense of achievement actually gives a kind of bit of satisfaction every day. And that I find really good for my soul. Part of keeping the momentum to be gardening and homesteading is also acknowledging when I'm down and when I'm not coping with things. And they're always less pleasant conversations, but they're also really important ones to have, because if I can acknowledge it and just accept it and know that I will come out the other side of it, however long that's going to take. And this last winter, that took weeks to come out of, and hooray, I'm out the other side of that. But knowing that I'm going to come out the other side of it, and I just have to ride it out, really allows me to say, okay, this is how it is right now, and just do what I can at the time, and acknowledge how I'm feeling, actually helps with that whole process of just getting through it and being ready to actually do more when I feel up to doing more. Towards the end of each autumn, I know that I wind down, I'll have less energy. It's been a busy few months. I suddenly start feeling really exhausted and really tired and grind to a halt. And I know that I'm going to have 3 to 4 months of getting slower and slower and doing less and less, and that's okay. It allows me to take that time off when I need to, when my body is slowing down, when my brain is struggling, and everything just, you can see my body just crumples talking about it. So everything slows down. And I know that around this time of year, I start lifting again, I start getting more energy, and basically I pack 12 months work into about 9 months. Having said that, I'm not always realistic about how much I can achieve in that time. I am getting better at acknowledging properly to myself that a job isn't going to be as quick as, oh, we'll put a fence post there, fence post there, fence post there, and we'll just run some wire across it. Because in my mind that's gone 1, 2, 3, run the wire across, what was that, 4 seconds? And that's going to take half an hour or more. So there is something about being realistic with my expectations of what I can achieve, which means that I then don't feel let down by myself that I haven't achieved that much. And all these things are small steps. They are small things that allow to build a bigger picture that just supports my mental health all the time as I'm going along. So here comes the science bit. Now, interestingly, I saw a post on social media yesterday that talked about there being bacteria in soil that has an antidepressant effect. So I read that article, went back and had a look at where that came from. Anyway, I traced it back to the original piece of research that they were talking about. And I tried reading that. It was actually way too scientific for me to really understand. But I read the summary, and basically there is a bacteria in soil called Mycobacteria vacei, and I think I've said that right, but who knows, that has the effect of working on our brains and other systems in our bodies that actually help to make us feel better. So the idea that gardeners are always happy isn't necessarily quite right, but there is something physical that can happen while we're gardening, and it's not about touching the soil, because I was thinking, well, I wear gloves when I'm gardening all the time, so I'm not actually touching the soil. It's airborne and you breathe it in, so brilliant, I can still wear my gloves and get the benefit of this bacteria. And then I was reminded that I read some research a little while ago about walking in trees, looking at trees, and how that can actually reduce stress, it can reduce anger, and it can lift depression. So I've also had a bit of a look at that. And sure enough, there's plenty of research that shows there are benefits to looking at trees and spending time in amongst trees and looking at them. And in Japan, they actually practice forest therapy, which they call Shinrin-yoku. Again, I don't know if I pronounced it right, and it's the idea of spending time in amongst trees, in the forest, and actually just enveloping yourself in the nature of being around trees. And that sounds like such a good thing. How often do we go for a walk and walk through woods and come out and just feel lifted by it? I also know there's been some research about where you put your eyes, whether you look down at the ground or whether you spend a lot of time looking up, can have an impact on your self-confidence, and looking up more can make you more confident, which to me ties in with that idea of, if you're looking up and looking at trees, that you are doing a multiple layer of effect. You've got the thing of looking up, you're looking at trees, you're breathing in those bacteria that are in the soil around you, What a fantastic example of a way that being outside and gardening is just going to make you feel better. So I don't know if that answers the question of how do I keep the momentum going. Hopefully you found some of that helpful and useful. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.